Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel here at True Reality Life, where we talk about the true realities of the life around us, beautiful, ugly, and everything in between. My name is Amber. If you need an introduction on me, you can go back and watch my first video, the last video, or the second to last video, because I attempted to make this video a couple days ago now and decided to just wing it, and it didn't turn out how I wanted it to, so I kind of wrote out a little plan and got my thoughts together so that I could actually present today's topic in a more structured way. So we're just figuring this out together. I also decided to put the little actual microphone cover on this because in watching my previous video with the little fluffy thing, didn't sound too great, and I looked it up and said that one's actually for outside and this one's for indoors. So sadly I had to let go of my little fluffy, which is I like better, it's cuter, but it's okay, we'll use this one and see how it comes out for this video. So today I wanted to talk about my faith and my relationship with God. If you watched my previous video, you realize I never say religion. I never say I'm a Christian. I don't talk about my relationship with God as a religion. I don't go to church. I am open to going to church. I want to find a church to go to, but I have learned that the basis of faith is my relationship with God. I read a Christian Bible and I am growing my relationship with God, but I will not talk about it in a sense of religion. I think that word has been taken out of context from what it was meant to be. I feel like some people use religion as not the sense of community it was supposed to be, but more as a place of, it's become a clique almost, where if you're not part of this group, you're excluded, and that's not the way Christianity was founded. It's intended to be an all-inclusive relationship with God and bringing people closer to God to worship Him and His glory. So that's what I believe in, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to tell my testimony and how I grew that relationship that I have not always had. So starting out, growing up, my parents were not religious, did not talk about God. We prayed every so often, like a typical, over meals and things, but it was a very recited prayer that you do for kids, and sometimes a bedtime prayer. But I never thought of it in a sense of like, oh God. It was just, oh, this is what we say, we're praying. But I never understood what that was exactly. So my parents didn't go to church, we didn't go to church. But whenever I was in elementary school, one of our neighbors started taking my sister and I to church because the father of that family, he was a pastor, and their daughter was around, like, in between my sister and my ages. So we started going to church with them. That didn't last very long because my wonderful sister decided to use very foul language and pretty much cuss out the pastor's daughter very publicly. So we were no longer invited back. We basically were told we cannot take y'all anymore, and we were taken home. So we did not go to church with them anymore. The only other exposure I really had growing up to church was through my best friend Lexi. She went to church regularly with her family, and I would go to like the summer camps with her over the summer, which was really fun, but I still didn't see it as like anything to do with God. I never opened a Bible. I didn't know really anything about anything. It wasn't until I went to college that I went to Baylor University, which is a Baptist university, that I learned all about Christianity. We had to take classes. It was a requirement of the curriculum. We had to take like a class where we read the Bible front to back. Basically just read like, hey, read this section, and then you had a quiz about it the next week or whatever it was. We even practiced like fasting. That was an experience where it wasn't necessarily a fast. It was you eat the same, you pick a food and you eat that breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day for, I don't know if it was a week or 2 weeks, or I don't remember how long it was, but that was very interesting. I chose meatballs, mashed potatoes, and a salad. So I ate that breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a while, and then you did like a journal on it to see how you were feeling. And then it made you a lot more appreciative of not having to do that. So whenever you go back to regular food, you're like, oh my gosh, everything tastes so good. In addition to that class, we had to take Christian heritage, which was very confusing because to me it just seemed like a lot of violence and wars, and these people killed those people because God told me to do so, and those people killed them because God said so, and it just didn't make sense to me. And now I'm learning the actual purpose of everything and the confusion and all of that. So it's nice that I'm finally coming to terms with everything. We did at Baylor also have to go to chapel, which was like an equivalent to church, where they did like the singing and the worship, and they did have speakers sometimes. We wouldn't necessarily like open the Bible. Sometimes we would and reference the Bible, but sometimes it was just like presentations, and they'd bring in different people, and it was different. But that's kind of what opened my mind up to Christianity, of actually understanding what it is. But there was still no relationship with God there at all. It wasn't until one of my friends from college invited me to go to church with them, and I went, and I really enjoyed it. I am a very vulnerable person. I easily open up to people, which is a good and bad thing in the history of me, because being vulnerable means I'm more susceptible to getting hurt, which I get hurt a lot and very easily. But I choose to continue to stay vulnerable because it allows me to feel all the feels, including the good ones like happiness, joy, grateful, opening my mind to a relationship with God, all of those things. So I choose to be vulnerable and just take the pain as it comes too, because that's just part of the human experience, and I'm learning to appreciate all of it. That being said, whenever I did start going to church, I opened up very quickly, very deeply, very quickly. And one of the friends that I went to was actually, he verbalized how jealous he was of how open I was to everything I was taking in. I would cry almost every service. I would open up, I would pray, all of the things. Now I'm realizing now that it's not, I didn't necessarily have a relationship with God, but I was going through the motions of it, if that makes sense. But my friend was jealous of me because he had been going to church his whole life and praying, and it had just become a practice to him. He had lost that sense of openness, that connection to God, that just closeness you feel, that I was learning to feel, because he'd almost become numb to it. It had just become muscle memory to go to church, to say he was religious, to say he was Christian, he did practice kindness, but he was just jealous of how quickly I was able to open up, something he'd been aiming for his entire life. So I am grateful that I was able to, because I distinctly remember one service too, that as we were singing, and I would sing my heart out, this was the one place I did not care what anyone thought. I would close my eyes and throw my hands up and sing. And there was one service that I was doing just that, and I don't know if it was, you know, you think about, oh, the vibrations of everybody singing in the room, the energy coming from the band and the music, and just like you would feel at a concert where you feel your body's just on fire, like it's lit up. But it's also like in church, you're like, I know now, it's like the presence of God is there, man. It's so awesome. And at the time I didn't know, but I had this feeling like God like was putting his hand on my shoulder, like from above, like coming and putting his hand on my shoulder. And immediately I just started bawling my eyes out, like completely and utterly just bawling, because I just felt like I didn't hear any words, I didn't anything, but it was like his presence. And I just felt like I am with you and you are mine, you are safe, I am here. And it was just so overwhelming at the time. But I didn't really dive into that. I was like, wow, that was beautiful. And afterwards I was like, oh my gosh, like I love this. I want to keep going to church. This is amazing. But it wasn't necessarily like, oh my gosh, God, where are you? Let me talk to you. Like I didn't see it as a relationship like that I could openly talk to him and call out to him. And that's what it's all about. And I didn't know that then. Going forward from that though, I started trying to go to life groups, to further just immerse myself. I was going through the steps of Christianity, of what I thought I was supposed to be doing. But then I got into a relationship with somebody who was far older than me and had 3 kids, had been married before, didn't get a divorce, was sadly widowed, but then got in another relationship and all of that. That's his story to tell. But I tried to continue going to church and going to life groups. I even tried to take my ex at the time to church with me, and I was just met with judgment. I was told, you are living in sin, this is not right, you need to leave him. Basically, I did not feel welcome anywhere that I was going. I felt judged. I would try to even go to life group without my ex, and I just felt so judged, and like nobody could be open with me. Like it felt like everybody was in this clique and I was the outsider. I felt so unwelcome. And you just knew the second you left, there were whispers, it just wasn't, I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel comfortable at all. So eventually I stopped going to church. I stopped going to life group. And that was the end of that. Down the road, I was still in a relationship with this person, and I took up a job of driving this older lady who had lost her vision from a surgery that went wrong. And it was confusing because she didn't sue them. She didn't anything. She just said, oh, it was, God's will. And so I drove her. She was in custody actually of her grandson who had autism. And that was very interesting. I love working with people with autism because I just think they're so beautiful, and they are beyond our understanding. I think they understand life in such a different perspective, and it's amazing. But that's a different conversation for a different day. But she was the primary caregiver of her grandson with autism, and I drove them to church. Every Sunday, I would drive 30-40 minutes to their house. We would take their car, drive them to church, then we would go to Walmart to get him a new movie and Peter Piper pizza and get pizza. And we'd get like 3 or 4 pizzas, and then spend like $200 on arcade games. It was the best time. It was great. And then I don't like pizza, but I would take any leftover pizza, and there was these homeless people on my drive home every single Sunday. They would be waiting. They grew to learn that I would have pizza every Sunday. So they would wait at the specific light, and I would give them the leftover pizzas, which was like 2 or 3 pizzas. So they would share it with all of the group that was there. But aside from that, at church, this was the exposure I had after kind of stopped going from the judgment, is I drove them to church, and I would sit through church, and I got a Bible, and I would take notes, like I would really listen to church and see what I could get from each Sunday service, as like almost a class, a course or something. I'm gonna take notes and see what I can learn. But I wasn't really connecting. I honestly got a little confused, to be honest, because the pastor was a previous alcoholic and he was saved, which is beautiful, but it was confusing because he said he had lived his whole life in sin and he was saved by God and Jesus, and that now he was going to heaven because he was saved for his sins. That part makes sense. The part that didn't make sense is he would always say, if you're living in sin, you're going to hell. But there was no follow-up to that. It's not, hey, you're living in sin and going to hell unless you're saved and you commit to Christ as your Lord and Savior. Like, that part didn't follow. It was just, oh, you're living in sin, you're going to hell. You're a sinner, you're going to hell. Period. I was like, what? Like, you're a sinner? Does that mean you're going to hell? Like, I didn't know. I was so confused. And so I didn't really attach to it. I was like, I don't know what you're saying. I would take lessons here and there of like, oh, be kind to your neighbor and all these things. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll be kind to my neighbor because, it'll pay full circle, whatever. Everything happens for a reason. I was taking it like that. But I never really got close to God in that way, that went on for, I want to say it was close to a year. I don't know, maybe a little less than a year, but didn't really connect then either. But there was all these times I'm seeing now, like God was reaching out for me, and I was just like, yeah, I don't know about this. I was constantly questioning. So it just started pouring outside, and I really hope you can't hear it. Hopefully this microphone is that good that you won't hear this rain. But I'm gonna keep going, just in case. Okay, so next part in the story, my ex and I split up. I ended up moving back to Houston and reconnected with my now husband, which is a whole story. But in the midst of all of this, my time away from the church, I was that person that called out to God if I was in trouble. So like, I would get strep throat. I'd be like, God, please heal me from this strep throat. I promise I will be thankful for being able to swallow. I will be thankful for like no pain. Cause we take advantage of life. We can swallow with ease. We can breathe without pain. We can walk and talk and all of these things, and we take them for granted. But that is such a blessing, because the second you lose any one of those things, you're like, oh my gosh, what I wouldn't do to just have that back. And to think of all the people in horrible situations that just wish they could walk again or talk again or anything like that. And I'm over here like, Lord, my throat hurts, please. I'll be grateful that I can eat again if you just heal me. And then, a couple days later, I get on antibiotics, whatever, I get better. And thank you, Lord, and then move on. And I don't think twice about it. Like I was definitely one of those. But fast forward, I'm in Houston. I reconnect with my now husband. We start dating. It's all fun. I get pregnant. And I'm so beyond nervous, but excited. I've wanted to be a mom and a wife for so long. Like since I was little, that's what I wanted. I wanted to be a wife and a mother. I want to be a mom. I want to be a mom. I'm so excited. I've always babysat kids, but I want to be a mom. And I was a stepmom with my ex, which was beautiful, but I wanted to be a mom of my own, man. I wanted to have my own kids that looked like me and I could raise from birth and all the things. So I was pregnant. Oh my gosh, I was beyond excited. I was like, I'm gonna buy this, I'm gonna buy that. What's the name gonna be? It's gonna be a boy. Oh, I was so excited, but my husband was terrified. We weren't married at the time either. And he was terrified. He was like, oh my gosh, I need to go. Like, his first reaction was to run. Like, he was like, oh my gosh, I need to go. I need to just process this. He wasn't leaving me, but like, he just needed processing time. And I was like, no, let's talk through this, whatever. So we start getting mentally prepared for this, and we go for I think it was the first doctor visit. I don't remember what we did, but I don't even think you can get the first doctor visit till you're like 8 to 10 weeks or something like that. But I don't remember. I pretty much probably blocked out a lot of this process, but I think we went to the first visit and they were just confirming that something was there, which there was, but it was too early to detect a heartbeat is what I think it was. So we went, we confirmed it was there. I did the P test, whatever. I was pregnant. There's a little tiny bean. Then the next appointment was at 11, 12 weeks, something like that. So almost 3 months. And I'd been, so sick, throwing up, all of that. And then like the week before this appointment, I stopped feeling sick. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you, Lord. We're going into the second trimester. I'm getting rid of the morning sickness. I was starting to be able to eat again. I was feeling good. Wow, I'm so excited for this doctor visit. Getting my energy. I went to the doctor visit and they couldn't find a heartbeat. Even the size of the fetus was way too small, measuring way too small for where we were supposed to be at. So the baby had been gone for probably a couple weeks. And I don't know, I haven't really processed it a lot, but it was heartbreaking. I immediately started crying. I even had the doctor who was like doubting, oh, who even said you were pregnant? I was like, y'all did last time I was here, pregnancy test, whatever, y'all even showed it was on there. It was making me feel crazy. And so I was like, oh my gosh, there can't be a God, man. This can't, what do you mean? Like, this happens way too often to people losing babies. There can't be a God. Like, all the things people say, that's not real. It had to be impossible that there was a God to let this happen. But I even had to go through like 4 rounds of, like, my body wouldn't miscarry on its own. So I had to take like those pills, abortion pills pretty much, to like try to force my body to miscarry, to expel whatever remnants were left. And that was torture, man. It went on for weeks and it wasn't clearing out on its own. I would go to the doctor every 2 to 3 days and it took weeks. And then finally, after like 4 weeks of going through this, the doctor finally said, we're gonna have surgery to go in there and do it manually, clean it all out. That was a heartbreaking process. I look back on it now and, what's crazy is I had been dating my now husband for a while, for a couple months before we got pregnant. And the week I was like, no, we should break up. I told him, I said, we should break up. This is too soon after my breakup with my ex. I haven't processed, I haven't found time to be with myself. I need to, I'm not ready for a relationship. I jumped into this too soon. I'm not even open to you. Like I was very standoffish. I was holding him at a distance. We weren't connecting on deeper level. Like it just wasn't it was just a fun relationship. I broke it off with him. And within 3 days, I had found out I was pregnant. And so many people are, oh, well, don't just stay with somebody because you're pregnant. And I get that aspect, but I told myself, I said, I'll give it an honest try now, because I wasn't giving it an honest try. I wasn't giving the relationship a genuine effort to work. It was just for funsies, pretty much. But now I was pregnant. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to at least try. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't, but I'm going to at least try. But at the time, neither of us were ready for a child. So as heartbreaking as it was to lose that baby, I see now, in hindsight, God's intentions with that. It was for a purpose, because I'm happily married with my husband, with our 2 beautiful girls. And to think that I almost didn't have that, to think I almost left him and would not have looked back. But I got pregnant and decided to give it an honest try. But we lost the baby because we weren't ready. And after that miscarriage, it took us a couple months to like fully recover from that. But then we were like, okay, let's give it an honest go this time. Let's actually try to have a kid, because we got so excited. And we tried for like 6 months and couldn't get pregnant. And we were like, okay, maybe it's just not the right time for us. Let's focus on other things. Let's get a house, because we were renting a house at the time. Let's get a house, let's get married, and then we'll give it a go. So we got engaged to be married. I don't remember if we got the house first or if we I think we booked a venue for our wedding next. So we booked a venue for our wedding, scheduled the date, and then we bought a house. And literally like a month or 2, maybe a month after we moved into our house, I found out I was pregnant. And had I not had that miscarriage, I would not have been able to have my daughter I have now. So I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, who is, oh my God, she's perfect. She's amazing. She's crazy. She's wild. She was everything a rainbow baby could be and more. She was everything that I needed and wanted and continue to need. But yeah, it all happened as it was supposed to. But I ended up at my wedding with a 4-month-old. So it wasn't necessarily in the proper order, but it happened how it was supposed to, absolutely. That being said, whenever I had my daughter, all natural, I wanted to be as connected as I could be. No pain meds, no anything. That was the closest anyone could feel to heaven other than dying. And it wasn't like, oh, I was fixing to die, so I, saw the light and experienced heaven, because there are definitely stories like that, people on the verge of death that actually die and come back, or whatever it may be, that have their testimonies of meeting God and Jesus and heaven. It wasn't like that. It was like whenever my daughter was born and put on my chest, it was like she was hand delivered, like the skies opened up and hand delivered me my daughter. God said, here is your blessing. And it was only God. Like, how else do you think, how many things have to go right for you to have a healthy child, to have a pregnancy? I had a really crappy pregnancy, y'all. My pregnancy was rough. I didn't gain weight in my pregnancy. I lost 21 pounds throughout my pregnancy because I was so sick. I could not hold anything down. I couldn't even stand long enough to wash my hair in the shower. I had to take baths and have my husband help me. But aside from that, to have a healthy pregnancy and a healthy child, you know how many things have to go right for that to happen? It is a literal miracle from God to be able to have a healthy child, and people take that for granted way too much. But the second she was born, I literally felt like God was handing her to me. The heavens opened up and handed me my child. That was the closest I was like, God has to be real, y'all. Has to be. But I still didn't really connect. I was so grateful for her, and I was so caught up in just experiencing her and being present. But I never connected the dots to be grateful to God to have that relationship. Fast forward, within this time, my sister, who had been down a dark path in her life, she has 4 kids. She turns 30 this year. She found God. She was going to church regularly. She was reading her Bible. But at the time, I saw it as such an extreme because she went from such a dark place to like finding God, and she was always talking about God and all these things that were like satanic, and you can't do this and you can't do that, and you can't do like, oh, Pokemon is satanic, this is satanic, like all of these things. And I was like, what? Like, it was so overwhelming because I wasn't expecting that from her. It was a lot. It was a huge, huge shift. So I didn't really understand it. I somewhat get it now. I do now that I've grown closer to God, but at the time I didn't get it. But I also saw like how much it was changing in her life, in her kids' lives, and even her now husband's life, because she felt like she was living in sin, and she got married to her husband on a whim one weekend, which I wasn't invited, sadly. Nobody was, really. But she was just eager to like not be living in sin anymore, so she went and got married. And it's changed them. They're so happy now, and I saw how much that relationship with God has just changed her. At first, I thought she was a little crazy, but now I understand it, really, I do. But fast forward to, I'm now very close with God. So how did all of this lead up to me building a relationship with God? So it all comes down to my best friend, Bailey. She got married this year, a couple months ago now. And she has a close relationship with God. She doesn't always go to church, but she has that relationship with God regularly. Oh my gosh, she's very close. Like, everything she does is through God. And you know, like, we hung out with them, and she would pray and she would talk about God, but it wasn't like, I'd never felt like she was forcing it on me. Leading up to her wedding, I was her matron of honor, and she had, you know, all of the bridal parties, the wedding parties, the bachelorettes, the whatever get together she would have. We had like a spa day with her family, her and her family went on a spa day, all of these things. And at each one of them, there was prayer, there was worship, there was talk about God, there was always a focus on God. And you know, I was just there for it. Like, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's part of it. But I was like, okay, yeah, we can all pray, amen, this and that. You know, I was there for it. I was present. I never felt once that it was, Amber, you should come to God. Oh my God. It was just exposure. It was so much exposure. But I was like, oh, we can go to church sometime. You know, like, I would start talking about it, but I wasn't building that relationship. Come her wedding day, I knew it would be meaningful for her if I prayed over her. I knew that was a big thing for her on her wedding day. And I know we had done like circle prayer with all of her other bridesmaids. We had done, you know, a prayer over dinner. But whenever it was just me and her, I was so grateful for this opportunity. I stayed back in the bridal suite while everybody else was doing something. It was just me and her. I was the only one allowed in there before she, got ready for the ceremony to walk down the aisle. And I said, Bailey, can I pray over you? And she's like, of course, yes. And so I sat there and I prayed with her, and it was choppy. It was crappy. I don't do that. I've never done that before. And so I prayed out loud for her, over her, and stumbling over my words, but I did it, and it was so meaningful. And we both kind of got teary-eyed, and it was just such a special moment. And I knew that meant so much to her. But what's wild is it opened up a door. It opened up a direct line, gave me a phone, gave me a link directly to God. And from her wedding day on, I could not stop thinking about God. Everything I was turning to was about God. I just wanted to know more. I wanted to learn. I would pray all the time, and it was like I had to return from my maternity leave literally the Monday after her wedding. That was on Saturday. I returned to work, and I started just praying to God, because I was like, I can't keep doing this night shift thing. I need to get a different job, and we're hoping to get a bigger house and all of these things. And so I started praying and praying and praying. And so I started applying for jobs, and one after another. Oh my gosh, it was so much. I was getting feedback, and I was getting interviews, and we ended up finding a house. And what's crazy about this house too is because we'd been looking for a while. Not oh my gosh, we need to buy, but it was we were open to it. So we were browsing all the time, window shopping all the time. And my budget was, say, a certain number, and the house my husband found was 10 grand under that number. And I didn't even see the house itself. I saw the floor plan of it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this floor plan. I looked at the school district. Oh my gosh, I love this school district. It's a little further from where we'd like to be, because it's further from family and things, but it is such a good area and good school district and all of the things. So I was like, oh my gosh, let's go look at this house. So we go to look at this house, and we go look at the model home first, and I just fall in love. I'm like, this is our house. This is it. But the model home had a different elevation, which I learned is the exterior of the home. So I didn't understand that at first, because elevation to me meant height. But no, the exterior of the home, the elevation was different, while the interior stays the same. So I liked the elevation of the model home better than the house that we were going to look at, which was, I don't know, it was just different. I was like, man, I really like the model home exterior better, but we'll go look at this one anyway. So we went and looked at it, and it was not a small lot, but a smaller lot. And what was funny was we were stressing that, oh, we'll have to sell our house first, we have to do this, whatever. But it was a new build house, and this one was already built. So I was like, oh my gosh, we have to sell our house. And the project manager, I guess, I don't know if she's not a realtor, but she's the project manager, the builder manager, whatever. She was like, well, actually, we have a corner lot that's almost double the size of this one that we went to look at, and it has the same elevation as the model home. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, cool. Then on top of that, she said, well, it's a quick start house. So it's not a new build per se. It hadn't been built yet. There was just dirt. But it's a quick start house, to where that meant the floor plan was already picked out, and then you pick from a selection, the interior selection. So there's 10 different selections, and you pick which interior set you want. Which, that's what makes it quick start, because everything's already picked out. You don't get to customize. I mean, you could essentially, but aren't meant to customize down to the every detail like other new builds may be. That being said, instead of having to put your 5 to 20% down up front for them to even start on this house, the quick start houses, you could just put $5,000 down as your earnest money, and then they could start building it, and then you'll close once it's built. So that gives us all this time to save money, to sell our house, to do all the things that we need to do in the meantime while this house is getting built. So I didn't have to stress. I was like, oh my gosh, everything is lining up so perfectly. And I was like, well, how are we going to be able to afford the closing costs for like selling our house? And then another thing came up. I asked God, I said, how are we going to be able to afford this? And we have using our realtor, kind of the loophole. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this or not, but the loophole where we put our realtor down as our buyer's agent for the house, because the builders are already paying for closing costs on their ends for the realtor fees. So we're putting him down, and he's going to sell our house, and that's all covered. So our fee will be a lot less. And I was like, wow, that's another answer. And in all of this process, I was getting interviews for different jobs, and I kept looking to God and all of the things for guidance of which job should I take and which, which one's right for me. And I'm not going to take a job if it doesn't feel right. Because there was a job that I went through like 6 or 7 interviews with, and I just kept getting a bad feeling. And so I didn't end up taking that one, but I was appreciating every step of the way as interview experience and exposure, so that I was getting better at interviews for whatever job that was meant for me. So I was learning to lean on God and knowing that He had a purpose for everything. Then I decided to make the smart decision that I've been getting kind of impatient with my children because I was sleep deprived, going through all the interviews, going through this house buying process, all while trying to readjust to working nights and finding babysitters and all the fun stuff. I was not doing too hot in managing my children. So I asked God to give me patience. And if you know anything about God or life in general, if you ask for anything, patience, strength, whatever, you will be put in situations that will test your patience, strength, and XYZ. Because that is how you learn. How you learn patience is by being in situations that force you to be patient. It's going to frustrate you, but that's how you learn patience. If you're wanting strength, you're going to be put in situations that test your strength. It's going to beat you down so that you learn and you grow and you get stronger. So I said, God, please, Lord, give me patience. Let me learn how to be more patient with my children. Oh my gosh. He answered that real quick, because my kids decided to start screaming simultaneously, did not want to stop screaming. I was like, Lord, I didn't mean this quickly. I didn't mean like this. Oh my goodness. But then the whole process for everything, the house, the interviews, everything almost was like a halting stop. And it was crazy to me because I'd been going at such a fast pace, and then all of a sudden everything was just I wasn't hearing from anybody in weeks. Every job that I applied to, I wasn't hearing from. The house still hasn't started, and this has been a 2-3 month process now. I'm still waiting for them to start. It's been, oh, we're waiting on this, oh, we're waiting on this, oh, we're waiting on this, when I was told it was going to start in 2 weeks because they already had all of that. But God has answered my prayers, and I am forced to be patient in situations, and I'm learning patience. I'm really learning. It's been a frustrating process, but I'm really starting to learn patience, and I'm learning to live in the moment and be present. And so I'm leaning on God in so many ways, and it has been such a beautiful process, and I love it. And I don't want to force God on anybody, but I want to lead by example and just show how good God is. Everything is showing up how it's supposed to, and I've been given so many blessings, and I just want to talk about it and praise God in every single way, and it's so beautiful. In the midst of all of this, God answering my prayers. I was talking to my best friend Bailey, who had got married, who had done all the prayers, who had been around for all her worship and things like that. I was telling her, oh my gosh, Bailey, God is answering all of my prayers. And I never talked about God like this. I said, God is answering my prayers. Look, he's doing this, and all of these things were happening. And the only thing I could feel was like, oh, I want to tell everybody. I want to tell everybody about what God is doing. He's doing all these amazing things. And I just want to tell everybody how good he is. You know, so I was overflowing with just joy and excitement about God. God is real. Oh my gosh. So I go and tell her, and she just started crying. I was like, oh my gosh, what? She said, Amber, the day of my wedding, before I went in to the venue, I prayed to God and I said, if everything goes wrong today, please let the one thing that goes right is that at least one person will be saved and will find God. And I started crying whenever she said that, because I felt it so drastically. I felt the change in me so drastically, like I had just been like welcomed home. Like I went from, I don't know, just aimlessly wandering to like being embraced and loved and having a sense of purpose. And I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand, like, there was nothing, I wasn't like begging for anything. I was, oh, I need to read my Bible, I need to go to church, I need to It was just like overnight I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, God is here, okay. And I just kind of ran with it. It was just, that's what it was. And ever since then, I haven't been able to I haven't fallen off of that. It's been 2 months now. Yeah, 2 months and like 3 days, to be exact. And every day I've been faithful to God and trusting in him. And even on the hard days, that's the first person I look to is God, and following his guidance and asking for his strength. And what, about a month ago, Bailey gave me, she saw how close I was getting with God. She gave me a prayer and gratitude journal. And I've journaled in it almost every single day since she gave it to me. And I've just felt my life getting so much better, like through therapy, through my relationship with God. Everything has been focused on him, and it's all just so good. Like, even the bad has become good. Every challenge that I've faced, I find a lesson in it. I find a purpose in it. Like, I know God's doing this for a purpose. Every rejection I get from job applications is for a reason. It's preparing me for where I'm supposed to be at. And it's such a beautiful process. And, you know, like, my husband is what a lot of people would say is like furthest from God. And it's wild, because he used to always make the joke that if we're all going to hell, he was going to be the driver, you know, like of the bus to hell. He was going to be the driver, because he was just so, and he was confident in that. Like, he was proud of that almost, you know, like he didn't care, he didn't anything. But in my relationship with God and growing closer with God and reading the Bible every day and all of these things, like, I don't know if he saw the change in me. Like, I'll bring stuff up to him, but I'm not trying to force it on him. But we've talked about it sometimes. Like, I'm like, hey, can I read you this verse in the Bible? And it's like, yeah, he's open to it. Like, he hasn't been like, oh my gosh. He does mention like, oh my gosh, just overnight you want to be God this and God that, you know, kind of annoyed by it, which I understand, because it can be very overwhelming, just like how I viewed my sister at first. But what's wild is slowly I would pray to God of like, God, bring my husband closer to you, open his eyes to you, you know? And like, slowly but surely, he's starting to mention God, and like, hey, maybe this happened because of God. Or like, he spun out on the road the other day in his car. And you know what he told me? He was terrified, and he told me maybe this was a sign from God that I need to get rid of this car and get something safer. And little things that happen, he's like, well, maybe it's God. Or he's like, I don't know, like, he says little comments, and he's like, just remember to have faith in God, Amber, da, da, da. Hey, God is doing this for me. So I'm like, oh, it's really like, it makes me want to cry. But it is such a beautiful thing because I pray for him all the time. And even my mom, like I've prayed for her for years, even whenever I used to go to church. And I know my sister has prayed for her, but she came to me wanting to get like, she was like, oh, I want to get a matching tattoo with you and your sister. What do you want it to be? And we're trying to decide. And she was like, well, we were talking about getting a cross tattoo. And I was like, a cross? Like, you're not, what do you mean a cross? You don't have that relationship with God. You're not religious. You're not anything. She was like, no, like I really want to. I think that'd be really, really cool to get a tattoo of a cross and just be like open to it. And you know, I see so many changes in her lately. Like she has become more positive. She's been more productive. I've been more willing to trust her with my girls. Like they've actually spent the night over at their house several times here lately, just because of how much change that has happened in her. And I'm not sure if it's because my sister and I both are now praying for her so openly and willingly, and she's coming to herself and closer to God. But it's just such a beautiful thing, y'all. It is so beautiful. And that's why I was like so eager to make this podcast of just sharing my story. And I think everybody's testimony is important, no matter how big or small. Like, you know, some people have those stories of I met Jesus and all of these things, and that's their story, and it's big, bold, and beautiful, and I love those stories. But every story matters, every testimony matters, every relationship with God counts, because who knows, my story might bring somebody to God, and that's all that matters. And that's all he wants from us. And it's not even like I don't feel pressured to like talk about God and like, oh my gosh, I'm a disciple and I need to go gather all the people and bring them to God and like you need to follow God. It's, oh my gosh, this is what's going on in my life, and it is so beautiful. Like, why would you not want this? Why would you not want to be with God? Like, just look how happy I am, how happy it makes me. Like, I literally feel like I light up talking about my relationship with him, because it's just so cool. Like, I just want to be like, oh my gosh, look at this cool thing that happened. Like, why don't you want this? But I don't judge anybody for not having it, because they'll come to him when they're meant to. And that's the beautiful part about it, because I don't go to church. I would love to go to church and I will find opportunity, but I work almost every weekend, and I will find that opportunity to worship him and be closer to him. But it's not an obligation to go to church, because I have such a close relationship with him, and I'm daily devoted to my Bible, to him, to praying, to talking with him, to just having that open relationship. And that's what matters. And it's at this point, like, this is the closest I felt. Like, no matter how many times I went to church, this is what it means to be a faithful servant, because he will talk directly to you. He will open your eyes. He will give you answers if you are open to it. You just have to be there. You just have to show up for him every day, and he'll show up for you. And it's so cool, and I love it. So that's my story. I just wanted to get it out there. And this is probably so long, and that's okay. Oh well, I hope it was recording the whole time. I hope my phone didn't die. But oh well if it didn't. It just felt so good to talk about this, and I feel like I did it justice this time. I might still post the last video that I attempted, just in a sense of like the imperfections of me, and maybe that will give somebody else the confidence to start whatever podcast they want to. So maybe it'll be a lesson that maybe I should share my story of it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to, you know, be learning lessons, because I learned that, hey, I can't just go into these willy-nilly. I need to have some kind of plan and mindset for what I'm going to talk about, to just get things out clearly, because that's how my audience is going to understand it. So I appreciate you guys if you've lasted this long. If you haven't, it's okay. It was very useful for me, and it's also just building my consistency to show up and post every week. But if you are here, thank you so much. I look forward to figuring out what my next topic is going to be, because I honestly don't know. But we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for showing up. Love you. Bye. Okay, so I started to walk downstairs and pack up all my stuff, but what's crazy is I'm up in the game room and my daughter has like a little bookshelf and stuff. She was playing with books in here earlier. And I kept looking over at this book that was on the floor, but I didn't know what book it was. I just, during the video I would see it on the floor and look at it because it's the only book on the floor. The whole room is clean because it's show ready, but she was in here playing with books and the only book that was on the floor was this one. Twinkly, Twinkly Nativity with an angel on the back. No, I can't make this up. I can't. Out of all the books she has, none of them have anything to do with God except for this one, and then she has a children's Bible. And she has probably over 50 books in here, and this was the one that was on the floor for today's episode. It's wild. God makes himself known so vividly, so graciously, but so in your face, I'm here if you're willing to see it. Anyways, thanks for listening. Bye again.